Welcome to the capital. It's the Manchester Derby. Accra Hearts and their rivals, city rivals, Accra Great Olympics, scoring it off here. This is the capital and the beach side, closer to the Independence Square. We welcome you to the Manchester Derby. The team spirit so high. It's over! And Hearts are champions of the Ghana Premier League for the first time since the 2008-2009 season. Hearts have finally won the Ghana Premier League.
This has been one of the most dynamic Ghana Premier League seasons in the last 10 years, where we've had a number of teams competing to get a title. And if you are taking a casual look at the league table, you realize that almost 6 teams have occupied the top position, from Bechem United to Ashanti Gold to Wafa, who led the table in week 1. You also have Great Olympics, who's come on top of the table for about 3 weeks. You have, surprisingly, Karela United, who were struggling in the 2018 and 2019 SC special competition, and also the abandoned or the cancelled league, also leading the table for about 13 weeks. So surprisingly, it took Asante Kotoko and Hearts of Oak the last part of the season to also come on top of the season. So I think it's been a very interesting season. It's been very tough for some of the favourites, and for the first time in many years as well, teams like Asante Kotoko were not mentioned as favourites at the start of the season, because Mediama SC had some amount of money from Goldfish Ghana, and so it placed them at the top of the favourites to win the league. Don't forget that we had the soccer millionaires, I call them, Legon Cities, who had also made certain purchases, including Asamoah Gyan, to their side, and so the dynamics were so wide to the extent that it was very difficult to pinpoint which of the teams was going to win the league at the start of the season. I think it's been very competitive and also very difficult for some of the teams.
Lovely dummy from Udasiru. Here is Kwe. Can he score? Kwe! Beautiful goal.
Accra Great Olympics, what a job they did, because at some point they were struggling for relegation, the season that got truncated, but in the season that started in this one, they looked very sharp, very fit, and everybody was on the same page with Anna Walker. And anytime they play football, they play some of the best football we saw in the season. They deserve to be there and to compete. But all that time where Karela were leading, and Mediama also became dominant, and Olympics became dominant as well, it was Asante Kotoko who at the time were asleep. But when the two giants got their mojo back, the rest couldn't cope with it, and the title race became Asante Kotoko. In the end, it was Hearts.
Look, one thing that was so certain is that for our game to get to the next level, we needed to improve the quality of coaching in our league. I have been in coaching courses with most of the guys coaching in the Premiership now. The likes of Sam Obwede, he was my mate for the CAF License B, Neodum, Ignatius. These are people I personally know. So when I got the news that they were now involved actively, I knew the quality was going to improve. I knew the tactics, the game reading in between the situations were going to improve and were going to get better. I knew one thing also for sure, that the demands of the quality required from every player, from all these coaches, were going to get better, because these are coaches that would demand a lot from their players, and in demanding, they tend to help the players through the chemistry. Sam Obwede, for example, is one person who hates to lose games. Every coach should never like losing games, but I have seen coaches that say, look, there are 3 results in there, you get one at a given time and you live with it. But this is a manager, or this is a coach who always insists that he goes to the training ground every day, not because he wants to draw or lose games. He's there pragmatically working with his team because he wants to ensure that at the end of the day he will win football games. If you look at a coach like Anna Walker, look, I was not necessarily involved, but I monitored Anna Walker from afar. Look, Accra Great Olympics didn't spend good money. When I say they didn't spend good money, they had no money to buy the sort of players that the Hearts of Oak, the Kotoko, the Mediama and co were buying. But one thing that the board or the management of Accra Great Olympics did so well was the fact that they believed in Anawaka. They knew that this is a coach who from nowhere had won the FA Cup with Nania. This is a coach who from nowhere again at the time that Brekum Chelsea participated in the Champions League in Africa. For those of us who were very close to Brekum Chelsea and knew exactly what they were doing technically and tactically, we knew the impact of Anawaka on that team. So the board of Accra Great Olympics said, look, Ano, do it your way. Whoever you recommend as a player that we should register, we'll go ahead and register the player. So Ano had time to work with them. And look, it manifested in the things we saw Accra Great Olympics do. From nowhere, players we didn't know, players whom the likes of Kotoko, Hatsafuk, Mediama wouldn't even look at. He gave them the opportunity. Look, the glass in Awaku we are all singing the praises about. Awaku, believe it or not, was presented to Kumasa Asante Kotoko when Max Okunedu was the head coach. He said, no, this is a lad who is completely done with his football. He's played his football outside there and he doesn't think he could match up. And Awaka looked at Awaku just twice and he decided that you are going to be my main man.
Not having to play in Kumasi affected them. If you analyze the league table and if you break it down into home table and the away table, Kotoko's home form, they got about 31 points from home. That was 12 in terms of, you know, that particular home form table. So if they had played in Kumasi, probably a lot of the losses would have been avoided. But the point is, when you play at home, and the data shows post-lockdown, if you look at the worldwide numbers, those who play at home, even though they don't have fans, still have a good chance of winning. And I think that not playing in Kumasi did affect Asante Kotoko to an extent. If you look at the points gap, it wasn't that wide, meaning that if they had picked up a few more wins, a few more points, they probably would have challenged hard to vote for, you know, they could have won the league. But not playing at home in Kumasi was a huge bother. It didn't really show in the season, like I said, because of the points, and they managed to get themselves accustomed well, especially playing Accra. But I think a bit more when they played at the Lenkley Stadium. They even had a better form than the owners, quote unquote, of the ground, Ashanti Gold. But I think they did a good job of keeping themselves going until the very end of the season.
Chikrazak. Ball onto the path of Daniel Banye. Oh, beautiful work. Pass. Mensah Banye. Brilliant.
I believe they found some consistency, even in the midst of the adversities that they had to face. You would realize that the profile of the coaches that they hired, from Samuel Odum, Papic himself, the under-15 coach, Ninoy, who had to take over, right down to Samuel Buedu, the thinking in terms of building a team, the structure, in terms of approaching a game, are quite similar. Even in terms of player profiling and how they would even arrange the team on the pitch and which players that they're going to select, there's some level of consistency on that level. If you look at the players that they fielded this season, Hearts were probably one of the few teams that you could, even before a ball was kicked, you could take a team sheet and then just draw up 11 players, and on a match day, you're going to find no less than 8 or 9 of those players starting for the team. What that consistency gave them was that you have players who had now grown together, and this is quite important, especially in a team where the coaching turnover is very high. So you have players who had grown together, who knew each other, understood each other, and essentially had a certain understanding that most of the other teams did not have. And so even in a difficult period where the team needed to find a cycle of topple, they will be able to come through because that bond is something that's actually there. Beyond that consistency in terms of the players that they would field, the fact that they had more match winners in the team, and not necessarily goal scorers, but also players who would assume responsibility and a certain degree of authority on the pitch. That could be an extension of the coach's authority. So if you look at the role that someone like Emmanuel Nete plays, Fatal Mohammed in the second round of the season, even Benjamin Efutukote, it's something that's telling, because if you go to certain difficult venues, once the game starts and the sense of occasion gets to the players, you need someone who's going to be an extension of the coach's authority to ensure that the boys are able to keep their head screwed on, think of the game itself, and then deliver.
There's one critical team that happened to Hasselhoff that many seem not to acknowledge. When the fans rose up, it did lots of stuff because management had decided not to listen to anybody. But when the fans, said that no, this is our team, we want it this way, and they gave a 5-point resolution. They wanted a local coach that was done They wanted the management to do a number of stuff. The board took wise counsel of it, and they did that. And for me, that has been Hearts of Oak's success story.
That's the opener. Wiseman Gansa says it's over here at the Langley Stadium, and Sharks are jubilating. They have beaten Kumasi Asante Kotoko on the double, and they know this win gives them all the advantage to stay up in the Ghana Premier League.
It was quite interesting because with 2 months or so left in the season, every single team in that bracket of 5 or 6 teams, they could either stay or go. But as the season wore itself down, you could kind of see who was going. Of course, Inter-Alliance relegation got confirmed very early. But you look at teams like Dwarfs and Liberty, you knew that they had to find something to go their way. It didn't happen for them. If you look at the court case, the disciplinary case that had Legon Cities in the mix, once that kind of resolved itself, you got the sense that it was going to take a lot more. And the fact that a lot of these teams needed to depend on either each other or somebody else to hand them a ticket back into the Premier League was always going to be complex. I think Liberty professionals gave themselves too much to do by the time the second round of the league came out, but they tried to get the results going. They couldn't get enough of that. For a team like Dwarfs, I think that the magic that Thompson Korte brought kind of ran itself out. They had issues playing at home. They had several other issues.
Buswa Dwarfs, it was when they talk about actions have consequences, that is the most apt way you can put it. The fact that those 3 points they lost as a result of the misbehavior of their fans in that game against Legon Cities, those 3 points they lost to Legon Cities went to Legon Cities, who were a direct rival with them in the relegation run. And if you look at the points on the last game of the season, you can tell that had the fans not misbehaved, Dwarfs would have had 3 points more, Legon Cities would have had 3 points less, and Dwarfs would have survived. So just a hard lesson for the Buswa Dwarfs fans, and for fans all over the Ghana Premier League. You have to comport yourself when you go to the stadiums, because it's as a result of the fans' misbehavior, that's why the team is down. It's as direct as you can get. But for the other team, that is Liberty, they had a season of 2 halves. The first half of the season, they were as poor as it gets. They just couldn't register points. They were struggling to defend, which was something very serious. Of course, if you cannot defend, you are obviously going to concede goals, and if you concede goals, you are going to lose matches. And for Liberty, it's very painful that had to drag on up to the halfway through the season, where things began to turn around. When Andy Sinasin came in, we could see some improvement in their team, started getting in some points under the board. In fact, they had one of the best starts in the second round with 3 or 4 games in a row on the bounce where they won games. But unfortunately, it was just a bit too late for them. And the fact that they had their destiny in their own hands on the last day, knowing that they had to beat King Faisal at home to guarantee safety, and they were unable to do so. When things like that happen, you only have yourself to blame. And for Liberty, you will look themselves in the face and say they are the main reasons why they went down.
But for the Legon Cities, they were very fortunate to have stayed, and I think that it's a huge warning to them. Next season won't be forgiving. They have to figure themselves that they need to get going on a very right note from the very beginning. But I think that the problem that Legon Cities will have going forward will be a culture. They don't have that kind of culture yet. They are trying to build a bit of a presence, a bit of an aura, and it will take them a while. But I think it was a very interesting relegation scrap, seeing teams look at the table and try to figure out, okay, what do we need to do to win and all of that. But for a team like Inter-Alliance, they were out. For Liberty, Dwarfs, Legon Cities and Co., they needed to keep it going till the very end. And it's just unfortunate that 2 teams who are quote-unquote staples of the Ghana Premier League have to go down. For Dwarfs, they've been doing this yo-yo thing. But for Liberty, this is very new, and I wish them the very best in Division 1. But it's been a very gripping race. I hope that next season will be as exciting as this season was, especially getting to the end. But teams will have to be very careful. This league, just like any other league, can be very unforgiving. If you don't work yourself into good positions, you will pay the ultimate price.
They do. The chip is on into the Etihad box. Good reflexes from Bauer, and another point-blank save. Game will continue. This, I doubt if it was a penalty.
My word. I don't know what it is. Here we see Victoria with the first shot. It was stopped with the legs
by Bauer. No, it was with the chest.
I'm going to be honest, it's not been great, but there's a reason why. And I'll attempt to break the reasons down. So there's the small matter of the referees themselves, the mistakes that they do make. Some of them are half-baked referees, if I'm to put it that way, because under normal circumstance, the referees that we have in the league, no more than 60% of them will not be officiating in the league. But because of what happened 3 years ago with number 12 and the fact that we lost 61 of our referees, the system had to cough up fresh referees. Now, majority of these referees were not fully baked referees. They have not gone through the norm, because for your average Premier League referee under normal circumstance has spent 8 years in the lower divisions, 3 years in Division 2, some 5 years in Division 1 before you make that transit or that transition into the Ghana Premier League. But after number 12, we needed to cough up extra referees to fill up the void that the 61 had created. And unfortunately for us, since 2018, we've never really had a season travel its full length for obvious reasons. So this is really the first time that we're having a season where the spotlight is on the referees and every single decision is scrutinized. Not that it's not happened in the past, but this time around the stakes are higher, and as the season wore on, the inefficiencies of these inexperienced referees were laid bare for everyone else to see, and that for me is the bigger problem.
There are times where, as a coach, you wake up 6 o'clock in the morning, you go and organize a training section. There are times your team will train 2 times a day, and at the end of the day, when you get to the match venue on Sunday, somebody in black or somebody in some form of multicolored dress will come and decide the results for you. It is so painful. We've had coaches like Ignatius, we've had coaches like even Samuel Boedu, Bashir Hayford. You remember all these top coaches, they've complained about officiating. Going forward, the FA will have to ensure that if you say these referees should never come into contact with the home team or the away team, you should find a proper way of housing them, transporting them first, housing them, feeding them, and making sure that whatever they need is provided for them. How do you do that? It's money. It's about cash. It's about jete, kudi, sika. You need to give them money, and the money must arrive on time so that as they go to referee these games, they'll be very, very comfortable before they even arrive. If I'm that comfortable, then I have to not to panic. One thing that we need to add to that again to improve the situation is the level of security. Look, some of these referees, I have spoken to several of them. They say you get to a match venue and you look at the supporters there, you can only do what pleases the home team.
Every time I saw anything close to an altercation or fan displeasure or anything of the sort, it just gave me chills and brought back memories of May 9th. And a classic example was that game between Accra Hearts of Oak and Accra Great Olympics. Such a great spectacle. Everybody wanted to get into the arena to be able to enjoy that particular game. And then we had the issue of fans overpowering security at the gates, breaking into the ground, destroying the hinges of some of the gates at the Accra Sports Stadium. Such incidents are clearly unacceptable. And for a lot of not so hardcore football fans, look, these are some of the matches that you use in advertising to be able to lure them to the game. So if I'm leaving my family at home to go watch an Accra Hearts of Oak and Accra Great Olympics game, I want to be able to come back having enjoyed a good spectacle and come back in one piece to my family. I don't want to go to a game where somebody would have thrown an ice block or pure water at me and I would have suffered bruises or injuries or some form of trauma after watching a football game.
I think in the Premier League, yes, the GFA have tried their best in the way they've handled hooliganism. I think the incidents that we've recorded in the Premier League itself have not been many. You can point to the Busoa Draws versus Legon City's game. There was no actual record of somebody beating anybody, but the referee abandoned the match and then obviously claimed that his life was at threat, and those things have to be taken seriously. The GFA did take action and gave the win to Legon Cities, and I think in a situation like that, that's only the right thing that can be done. You look at other scenarios, for example, the situation involving the Busoa Dwarfs head coach, Ernest Thompson Quote, claiming that he was beating her. For me,
the way the GFA handled it, not only did they not even acknowledge this particular incident, nothing was done at all. And I'm not even sure it was investigated and whether anybody was punished. But when a head coach of an opposing team makes such serious allegations and shows even visuals and interviews claiming such, then I think that action has to be taken, because people need to feel safe going to certain league grounds. And when the GFA turns a blind eye to incidents like that, I think it's a bit worrying. We also saw perhaps a situation involving the 11 Wonders coach Ignatius Osefosu and the way the police handled him. I don't think that speaks very well of the league, and I think that for even the case of the police and the security personnel, we talk an awful lot about how we can get the crowd and even stewards into the crowds to try and help control the situation. I think one thing that has to be done is that I feel like the stewards that we're training are not necessarily empowered to be able to do their job well. And so then in the end, we leave it in the hands of the few policemen that are there. And policemen who are there to protect head coaches and players and ensure that the fans are safe cannot be seen as the same people manhandling the people that they're meant to be protecting. So I think in situations like that, I think there's an awful lot more the GFA can do. But generally this season in the Premier League, I feel like the hooliganism situations have improved. With all those previous incidents of having fans prevent TV broadcasters from accessing venues, all of that have stopped thanks to certain regulations from the GFA. And I think that if they can keep that up, it will be better.
Thankfully, the fans have turned up, and these two teams will enjoy some support from their vociferous fans.
Well, often we've used the cliche term that if Hartlepool and Kotoko are doing well, the Ghana Premier League is doing well. For the first time again, I saw something that I hadn't seen in a long time, which was the indicator of how strong the two teams were. Back in the day, before crucial Ghana Premier League games, you would see taxi drivers, trotro drivers would drip flags of these two teams on their bonnets, on their cars, would wave around. You would hear the honking of horns after games and all of that. So to see both of them actually manage to stay consistent enough to be able to give us a title charge was incredible. And I mean, even right here at Citi FM and Citi TV, the euphoria around the league was infectious. I remember before the Super Clash, look, people from all departments, people I know don't basically watch football or can't be too bothered about football, were all engrossed in it. They were asking for tickets, they were asking for jerseys. In fact, even on the day of the action itself, 2 hours to the game, people were still texting me for tickets. And these are people who typically don't even watch football or don't care about the Ghana Premier League. So I definitely believe that when Hearts of Oak and Kotoko are doing their things right, I mean, the rest of the chips will fall into place. The rest of the league teams even look at them and say, well, this is how it's supposed to be, and we will be honored to be able to compete with them and be able to beat them to, I mean, just even boost our own profile. But kudos to Hearts of Oak and Asante Kotoko. They sold us a good season.
Yeah, the Accra Stadium. It's an exciting one. Happy Easter to everybody wherever you're watching us from. What a game this is to restart the Premier League season that went for a break. For the second round, it's...
Well, I'm lucky enough to be traveling around covering the Ghana Premier League as a Sunrise commentator, and I'm lucky enough to see the games happen live in the flesh. I must say I've been to every venue this season, and I think the love is coming back. It is. When you get to the town, it's not about the match, it's not about the day or the time that the game is happening. Sometimes it's the day before the game, when you're lucky enough to go and spend a night in Techimano or maybe Doma, sometimes Kumasi before you make the trip to Brekum or Boase. Sometimes the day before the game, you feel the euphoria. And on the match day as well, the more they're leading up to the game itself, you always feel that there's something in town. There's a game happening. There's Kotoko coming to town, Hearts of Oak, or there's a Mediama happening somewhere, or there's a team that is preparing to get a victory just to get themselves away from the relegation zone. Talk about Elmina. It was the story of the entire season for them. Every time that there was a game in there, the fans were amazing. And we saw it during the lockdown time where fans couldn't go to the stadium. Some, you call it for the love of the game or something else, they would park a van mounted just to see their stars playing. I think the love is coming back, and that also has been helped by the media coverage that we've had with football. I mean, the print, radio, television has been phenomenal. Everybody talking about this. I think the love, it must be said, it's coming back.
is Great Olympics at home against Accra Hearts. Is our coverage of the Ghana Premier League on Star Times at the Park Channel 247.
It's been enormous. It really has. It's been incredible because every league in the world, every franchise in the world thrives on, viewership, or thrives on the fact that people can see it, thrives on the fact that it is visible for people to see. Because when people don't really see the action, there's so much they can talk about. They would have to rely on what you say on radio, what you read in the papers. But when you've seen it as well, then you can properly relate. I think that it's the first time ever in the history of the Ghana Premier League that we've had sometimes on a match day 5 games on TV, 4, 3. It's never happened before. Credit to the organizers as well, the FA. The way they spread the fixtures. You have a Friday night fixture sometimes, Saturday, Sunday afternoon, sometimes Sunday evening, Mondays as well. So all the games are not congested to a Sunday 3 p.m. kickoff like we used to have. You have the whole weekend to digest the action. I think that has gone on to help. And the coverage from Star Times, must be said, it's also sent the league to another level where people can now see their teams play. People can now talk about Kwame Poku's celebration because they see him. People can locate Awaku at the stadium and know that is Awaku. I think the broadcast, the plan, the schedule has helped. Has gone a long way to help the popularity of the league and also aided in bringing back the love.
Both together around him.
Gama with a shot on target, and that is Gama's first goal of the league season.
The introduction of players like Michael Vinicius Jr. and Fabio Gama for Kotoko, it brought a lot of excitement because when he came, especially Fabio Gama, people were like, this guy, he doesn't even have good stats from the team he's coming from or from where he's coming from. They didn't expect him to do well, but as time went on and he started performing for Kotoko, people were like, oh, this guy is actually really good. And then they were like, okay, he's really helping the team. And then they started like, people wanted to see what else you do in the next games and all of that. Same for Michael Vinicius Jr. Though his stay in the Premier League was not long, he also left a good mark at least in the few games he played. And also for Ebusian Drafts, they also had Jindo Morishita, who came in, and also, I mean, he's not really shown us what exactly he can do, but his introduction also brought a lot of excitement to the Ghana Premier League. So I feel like the love is coming back, but there are a few things that need to be done to ensure that in continuous seasons, it doesn't just end for this season, that it continues, and then the Ghana Premier League can go further and across the world.
It's in Nyansa, anybody 14. Idea, it's not you and me. Idea, it's not you and me.
When you talk about bringing back the love in this current setting that we are in, of course, on the field, the players and everybody had to do their part. But one major reason from where I stand that brought back the love in this Ghana Premier League season was the activities of the various clubs on social media. And if I'm supposed to rate them, I give them 100%. From the trolling, and that's the thing, they found a balance between entertainment and the main business. They put out very relevant information for anybody out there who wanted to follow their clubs, the likes of Accra Hearts of Kumasi, Asante Kotoko, Olympics, of course, when it came to the entertainment side, Legon Cities, who had a fantastic season in terms of social media. They were brilliant in terms of branding and information, and anybody who became a Legon Cities fan this season had nothing, was not short of any information. Everything was there for them to access, and it was brilliant to see. You have to strike that balance because we've reached a stage where the European game was grabbing a lot of attention from of the locals, and these clubs needed to push in extra efforts to try and grasp the attention of Ghana Premier League fans, and they did exactly that. You look at Kotoko and the artworks that they put out there, you look at the Super 2, the way the both teams hyped them with their graphics and things, it just brought back that excitement. And in a generation like this that is focused and centered on social media, if you're able to go through that aspect and get the attention of people, it's absolutely perfect. And it just brought back that joy and that competitiveness back. Of course, a lot of people who are not following the Ghana Premier League, once you log on to Twitter or Facebook, you see these fans or these teams having a jab at each other and the banter here and there. It was very interesting, and that's why I said the fact that they were able to balance it between the entertainment and also the relevant information was top notch. And you have to give the various social media handlers of the various clubs a lot of credit for the work they did this season.
without any doubt, it's got to be Salif Ibrahim.
Salif Ibrahim of Hearts of Oak.
Ibrahim Salifu.
For Accra Hearts of Oak, it's Salif Ibrahim running down the line, sends in the cross with the left shot into the net. He goes.
Salif Ibrahim deserves to get a player of the season in terms of the number of matches he's played, in terms of his position and the job that he's required to do. His job is to provide assists as a central midfielder, and he's done that. He's given 8 assists so far, and people have rubbished the man of the match. I mean, I think it's huge for him to have picked 5 from 11 Wonders, picked 3 from Hearts of Oak. Is huge, and I think that he's really brought up something different that many Ghanaian midfielders do not do. He doesn't waste so much time on the ball. He makes sure the pass goes to the right place at the right time, and for me, I think he's worked so hard this season to deserve that accolade. So my player of the season goes to Salif Ibrahim of Hearts of Oak.
Quick swan in, heads go up, and the Fabians are up by 1-0. Benjamin Afuto, 9 minutes, and Hearts of Oak.
I'm a more pragmatic person. When I'm watching football, I tend to look out for those players who will make the team the moment they are not around. So I always mention Igolo Kante, for example, as a player that you cannot do without. So I'm going all out to pick a teammate of Salifu. And I think Ifutu, in my view, has been the revelation of the season. He's done things that he's never done before. He's not only stabilized the midfield of Accra Hearts of Oak, but he's chipped in with important goals.
It's picked up by Augustine Okra, lays on the pass for Fabio Gama. 2 matches, 2 goals. Fabio Gama is hot like fire.
I think Fabio Gama deserves a shout.
It's hard for a Brazilian to come to the Ghana Premier League and actually gain respect. There were all sorts of things that were said about him. Some said he was a mechanic, some said he was a taxi driver who had come here to make easy money. It turned out that he was even a different breed of Brazilian, because when you think about Brazilians, typically you think about flamboyance, you think about the samba style of football. Fabio Gama was able to dominate games without actually having to do all the extras, the showboating and whatnot. He dominated games with single passes. This guy could take out 4 defenders with 1 long diagonal ball. His decision making was quick. His teammates basically gravitated towards his simple style of play, and there was just that class embedded in the simplicity of his play.
Now it's blocked by Wafa. Fatal's cross in. Radio Buka!
My player of the season has to go to Hearts of Oak's left back, Radio Voka, of course. When you look at the Hearts of Oak team, and this is the thing about football, a lot of people will look at the person who was the star of the team, the person who the lights and the cameras were all around, and that's Salif Ibrahim. But if you look at Radio Voka and his consistency in this team, in the first half of the season before Boedu came in, he was the most consistent player in the team. He hardly put a foot wrong in every single game he played. He was a mainstay in that Hearts of Oak team all through the end. He's somebody that when you take out of the team will definitely feel his loss. And he's somebody that, for me, in terms of consistency and the level of performance, he's my player of the season.
But here is Olympics, an opportunity to ask questions of Ashkod Glasson Awako. Goes for goal!
I'd say Gladson Awako, yes, his second round form was bad, but I don't think the league saw an individual who took his team and got that team through very difficult times like Gladson Awako. So for me, he gets my vote as player of the season.
It has to be Hearts of Oak versus Great Olympics.
Hearts of Oak, Accra Great Olympics.
Hearts of Oak Olympics.
Hearts of Oak versus Great Olympics stands out.
Glasson Awako, the ever-present captain, leading his charges as Qatar Mohamed also lead Hearts of Oak onto the pitch for the big derby. Left and right foot, switch flanks very well as well. Radio Voka, he's up against Samza, sends a cross in.
I've not seen this season in any game where the intensity, the quality, goals, the technical quality from the bench was better than the game between the Manchester derby, the game between Hearts of Oak and Olympics in the second leg, where it ended a draw. In the end, it was the correct reflection of the game, but the quality in that game, I've not seen that the whole season. It's my best.
Zubeiru, what a challenge! What a shot! What a goal! What a goal! What a goal! Did you just say a few minutes ago that this would be the greatest comeback in the Ghana Premier League?
The match of the season was the epic game between Berekum Chelsea and King Faisal. I'd go for that crazy game between Berekum Chelsea and Faisal.
I would also say the King Faisal versus Berekum Chelsea.
Berekum Chelsea against King Faisal for many reasons, because I thought for the first time in the Ghana Premier League we saw a team come down from 3 goals down to win, because that for me has to be one of the best comebacks in the history of the Ghana Premier League. And for that to come from a team that was fighting relegation, it was brilliant. And the nature of the goals that were scored, Kwame Pepra, the quality of the goals that were scored in that game, absolutely top notch. And the tactical news that Andy Sinnison employed in that game to get that win, for me, I think that goes down for me. That's the game of the season.
It has to be Samuel Boadu. Samuel Boadu of Accra Hearts of Folk.
Samuel Boadu.
Samuel Boadu.
I think Samuel Boadu.
Samuel Boadu of Accra Hearts of Folk.
Samuel Boadu.
Champions of the Ghana Premier League, a feat masterminded by this man, Samuel Boadu. He has ensured that Azabok are champions for the first time in Ghana in the last 12 years.
Samuel Boadu, I think this is probably the only place where there's an overwhelming acceptance.
Coach of the season. Coach of the season is no doubt, it should not be debated anywhere. Let no one be distracted to debate about this. Samuel Boadu has done a yeoman's job.
Beautiful goal. Olympics are up by 1-0. Also.
On the part of Anna Walker, limited resources, using players that nobody thought could match up to the standard of the league. Yet still, technically, tactically, he was able to issue out instructions. And he's given us some revelation. Players we didn't know, like Ashikwe. Ashikwe is now, in my view, one of the most important players in our local league. And for me, Anna Walker has proven time and time again that he's indeed a very top coach. And no wonder the people at the FA has rewarded him with a national assignment. I think my coach of the season has to be Anna Walker.
Richmond Lamptey.
Richmond Lamptey.
I will simply go for Richmond Lamptey's stunner against Hearts of Folk.
I'm so close to the goalkeeper. Always difficult for attackers to get on the end of it because the least contact with the goalkeeper is a foul.
Awesome! Brilliant goal! Inter Allies have broken the deadlock. Richmond Lamptey from that is a bullet of a shot out of nowhere, totally against the run of play. Answers to this.
Richmond Lamptey against Hearts of Oak. Too bad he takes all that down into Division 1 with Inter Allies, but you won't find a hit that's as pure as that. Yes, I think a goal from the Berekum Chelsea Faisal game equals, but the sheer ability to think that let me try left-footed from out there first time or 2 touches, bang in the back of the net. That's my goal of the season.
Emmanuel Nete versus Accra Great Olympic.
Emmanuel Nete versus Olympics.
Salifu's corner. Goalkeeper Ben Asari gets it away. And it's a belter of a goal. Emmanuel Nete. Stupendous imagination there. Salif Ibrahim with the corner kick. Benjamin Asari seems to have done enough to have parried the ball away. But on the half volley, as sweet as you like, as clean as you like.
If you are a coach and you understand technique, one technique that is so difficult to be executed is the half volley. If you watch that goal again, it was a corner kick and the ball was headed out. So Nete came onto the ball and he met the ball just before it touched the turf. And technically, that was so difficult to execute. And again, if you look at the crowd, every player, I think we had close to like 15, 16 players in the box, all in front of him. For him to have executed that, the ball not hitting any player, the zoom straight into the roof of the net. I think in my view, that to me is the goal of the season.
I'll say Jonah Atsukwe against Bichim United. That goal was just awesome. the control before he shot the ball into the net was awesome. I just loved that goal. I watched this so many times because I was like, how did he even like the control, the way he even controlled the ball on his chest and shot the volley into the net was awesome. It was a pity Legon City didn't win that particular match, but that goal is my goal of the season.
Shot from a distance. What a goal! What a goal! By all standards, that was a goal with class.
A long pass from Nasiru Moro, and the control was expert, and the finish fantastic. Super goal from Jonah Tukwe, the former Brekum Chelsea player. You see that long pass from Nasiru and the Chester. The control was expert.
My goal of the season, I had initially selected Jonah Tukwe's goal against Bechem United, but then James Bisu happened on the last but one game of the season. I don't know how he controlled that ball from the center of the pitch, the awareness to spot the goalkeeper off the line, and the technique to execute it and also get it in the back of the net. In fact, the goal was so good. It was talked about by the BBC, Sky, Go, ESPN. A lot of people were talking about it being a contender for a Puskas Award. And if the foreign audience have taken notice of this goal in Ghana and are pushing for it to be a Puskas Award, I don't see any reason why it is one of the best goals of the season.
So here at Citi TV, Citi FM, the local league has had very wide coverage. We're probably the only station in the country that has a dedicated TV program just for the Ghana Premier League called Football Made in Ghana every Wednesday. And every single time that show is on, we've got expert opinions from the likes of Ashut Samaklos, Sicho, the commentator in the Ghana Premier League, Seydou Adam. All of them have been on that show specifically to promote the Ghana Premier League. And I think that has really gone down well with a lot of our listeners and a lot of our viewers, especially who have been kept informed every single weekend about what's going on in the Ghana Premier League. Our highlights show on TV as well, Scorecard, the first half hour is dedicated to just Ghana Premier League content. Digitally, we have a wrap of every Ghana Premier League weekend on our website, citisportsonline.com. So it's received quite the coverage from Citi TV, and hopefully going forward into the next few seasons, we can have a lot more shows that basically are dedicated to the Ghana Premier League, to promoting the Ghana Premier League. Our YouTube channel has also been used effectively. Thanks to StarTimes for making the highlights available for us. We're able to do even match week compilation of some of the best goals in the league, or whether some of the most controversial refereeing decisions and what have you. We've got very interesting content built around the Ghana Premier League, all from Citi FM and Citi TV in the last season, and I'm quite pleased with the output. Hopefully next season we can do an awful lot more.
But this generation of outside players and technical men will be extremely excited. There you go. The Phobians are champions of the Ghana Premier League. They have their Premier League title. Congratulations to the Phobians.
Yeah, congratulations to the Phobians. Finally, the wait is over. Finally, they have their hands on the title which they've deserved. Samuel Brady is the man with his army of Phobian players who never said that throughout the whole campaign. There were moments where many thought they were down. There were moments where many thought they were never going to reach the top. But here they are. They have reached it and they are celebrating it. Well deserved.